Cerebral, cool, precise, and stoic. Honest, vulnerable, introspective, and authentic. Words and worlds that collide and tell the story of Bernie Kosar. You can't have one part without knowing and understanding the other. Bernie's journey personifies that contrast. He's a story about adapting, learning, and surviving despite adversity and personal hardship. Personally, I am inspired by Bernie Kosar. He's always been forthright and transparent in his assessment of the choices and decisions he made and the consequences delivered. I admire that and find it a valuable and endearing human quality that few possess. Let's listen, let's learn from my NFL brother and legend. Bernie, welcome to Great Dane Nation.
Hey, Morten, good to be with you. And I don't want to sound like a suck up right off the bat, but that introduction actually, and in all seriousness, that introduction actually would be something I would say and articulate about yourself.
Well, thank you. It's it's a journey, it's a marathon that you and I have been on now. I'm a little older than you, Bernie, not much though. But it's been a hell of a ride, and I want to get this out of the way right off the bat. My apologies for Michigan State going down to the U and spanking your Hurricanes. I apologize.
Well, as a Michigan State alum, which you are from, I think the 1982 draft class, I think
right,
the highest drafted kickers,
right.
And I think in the fourth round, if my CTE hasn't affected me.
Oh no, you're good. You're
right
good.
now. But I love, and that's a beautiful place to start, the University of Miami, and we say a little bit in jest the Michigan State University of Miami game from a month ago, but really you being a Hall of Famer, 25 years in the NFL, myself being blessed to play 12 years in the NFL, we've really had so many opportunities and blessings that so many other people really didn't come across. And then back then, some of the coaching that I was able to get, like with Coach Schnellenberger and the great Don Shula, who really gave us so much of a belief in ourselves when we were young men. And some of the life's lessons that we learned back then are absolutely some of the life lessons that we're carrying forward with us now. And I find it almost, I don't want to sound like an old guy, but bluntly, Mort, you and me are trending in that direction and saying back when we played. But heck, back when we played in the 80s, that type of football that was being played, that type of physical presence that was out there during the games and in practice. And sometimes practice was actually more physical and more punishing on the bodies than the games were. So we see the ramifications as we get older from some of those injuries that some of us materialize when we were playing back then. And myself, I've been through, like yourself playing 25 years. All of us could come here and talk about a litany of injuries and stuff, but boy, foundationally, the way those coaches and those colleges taught us back then to be men, to grow up, the kind of life lessons really kind of resonated, I believe, within both of us to help us lay that pathway to our long-term professional careers.
Well, Bernie, I was luckier. I wasn't an every down player, and you touched the ball on every snap offensively, and so that put you in a vulnerable position. And it's been well documented now that you brought it up, the CTE issue. And back then it was old school. It was some smelling salt and get back out on the field. Nobody understood the compounding effect of repetitive hitting in the head. And that's what we're learning now. That's what you're experiencing and have experienced for many years, the ringing in the ears, right? The symptoms, the headaches, the sleeplessness, the depression, all of those things, Bernie. So the floor is yours to speak on that and on your personal experience with CTE.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, for the listeners out there, Mort, I have to concur with you and say you're right. When you see like a lot of the physicalness of what goes on the field, and like you take the Browns game over the last. Here we are looking at the Browns stadium.
Oh, it's great. By the way,
my shoulder here.
You get a thumbs up.
A big talk in town here is about like Baker Mayfield. And last weekend they were playing at the Chargers in LA. We got 523 yards of total offense. We score 42 points, and he's been going through a torn labrum in his left shoulder, and he's showing amazing toughness, amazing grit, not complaining, going out there, making plays, scoring, playing an NFL game, playing at elite levels, scoring points like that, showing toughness, really shrugging off those type injuries. Again, not like wanting to sound like the old guy back when I played, but same thing. We'd go through those issues. I played a game against the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. You break your ankle in the first quarter. You end up playing the whole game on it.
Right.
And actually, to this day, I'm really proud of that. Just like Baker Mayfield should be so proud of the effort and abilities that he's doing and the results that he's getting when he goes out there with these injuries. But when you're young and in your 20s, you don't really realize that you're going to pay the piper. And at some point, the ankle that I was so proudly walking on and playing on in my early 20s, the broken shoulders, the messed up elbows, the broken ribs, the back, the head issues, the things that you could get through when you were playing in your 20s, at some point you pay the piper.
Yeah.
You have to pay the man for that. I'm 57 right now. Man, when you start getting into your 40s, like when I was, 17 years ago, you still think you're in your 20s. You still think you're tough. You still think you're invincible, that you're going to bounce right back. Well, you stop bouncing back. You started really the injuries and stuff really started
compounding,
amplifying within it.
Yeah.
So those type issues were stuff that you really don't want to admit to. One personally, and then to people around you. So you go through a kind of a stage where you're in denial yourself, you're in denial to other people, and you're really searching for answers. So that inability to find answers, that inability to make yourself right, to feel healthy, was been really a pursuit of a lot of us through what we've gone through playing wise.
So I'll try to lend a little perspective to our listeners who don't quite understand CTE and understand the history of it. But when we played in the 80s, Bernie, and you got a concussion, there was no tent that popped up on the sideline. There was no, he's done for the game and he's going to be in concussion protocol and he's not playing this game out. And he may not play or practice the next week or two. There was none of that. And to your point about Baker Mayfield, who's playing through injuries, like a lot of guys are, if he has a head injury today in a game or in any game, he's going to the sideline. He's going right in that tent. He's going to see a doctor. He's going to see a neutral doctor from the league. They're going to assess him. And he's probably not coming back in that football game. But that was not the case in the 80s when you were starting for the Cleveland Browns.
Right, absolutely. And more to that point, and to that point, the concussion protocols are absolutely way better for the athletes and for the young people today. Absolutely. Just like technology, we're doing a podcast. We got cell phones.
Yeah.
Mine's broken. Technology has gotten so much better. Medicine has gotten so much better. So, and even some of the things that I've gone through, I'm not blaming docs or blaming people for that. But for the listeners out there, Mort, you're so right. Heck, the old concussion protocols in the 80s. Now we go into the tent. We have baseline analysis that are in computer algorithms to see how you're doing is before, during, and after. Heck, it's so sophisticated. It's from a scientific standpoint, it really is beautiful to see, especially for a guy who 4 years ago was diagnosed with 5 years left of cognitive brain function. I was not able to say cognitive brain function. I couldn't articulate, communicate, enunciate multiple syllable words on an interview, even in life. So that ability to try to find a way to heal yourself is essential. But heck, the old days, the concussion protocol test used to be the docs would come out there and they would do the finger test. And they would they wouldn't have put up one finger because that's too easy, and they wouldn't put up 3 fingers because you may miss that. So it was always 2. So 2 fingers. So I remember, and Morten, I think you and me were kind of talking about this. I'm absolutely going to show my age right now, but I tend to talk a little too much. And as a quarterback who was so well versed and so well groomed under Coach Schnellenberger, Don Shula, Marty Schottenheimer. Yeah, had some really top tier coaches.
You did.
And their abilities to kind of trust me to be able to make plays. So I was able to audible a lot. So I didn't wear a mouthpiece. So which young kids, please don't do what I say. Do as I say. Don't do as I did. Do as I say.
Yeah.
Because not wearing a mouthpiece, I prided myself on audible and changing plays, people understanding me, but I didn't wear the mouthpiece, so almost all my teeth were knocked out. So hockey players don't have their front teeth. Quarterbacks who are stubborn, who don't wear their mouthpiece, don't have their back teeth. So first time I realized that was a fatal mistake for long-term health was we were playing the Jets in the 1986 playoff games. And again, showing my age, but they had a massively good front four of rushing. And Mark Gastineau was the sack exchange back then. And fortunately, I had thrown a couple picks to kind of blow the game in the fourth quarter. And on about the 3 or 4 yard line, Gastineau hits me late, gets a roughing the quarterback call, but he knocked me out. And that was the first time I had been unconscious on the football field. And you're laying there. It's it's 4 minutes to go in a game. You're down 10 points. This beautiful stadium behind me, and again, fans, we don't do this anymore, but we used to bring dog bones and things to the stadium. They used to throw them at the opposing game. Morten, you're very familiar with that.
Familiar with the dog pound in the old Cleveland Stadium.
So I'm knocked out in the old stadium, down in that dog pound, had thrown a couple interceptions to almost blow the game. So it was throwing these big old dog bones at me. Gas goes on top of me. I'm missing a couple teeth. I had swallowed one, end up having the other one in my hand. And I'm like, your light's flashing before you. And the trainers are coming out. The trainers are coming out to say, because you're concussed and you probably should have left the field. But, that mindset that we had back then of not wanting to lose, not wanting to let the guys down in the huddle around you, and not wanting to be the reason why you lost. I mean, I did not want to be that reason for losing. So they come out, I know what's coming. And then back then I used to have smelling salts. Remember how they used to give you little ammonia tablets? So
little ammonia.
Kids, don't do this. But it was loud back then. They used to I have a pocket, and they'd have the ammonia in there. So before the trainers would get out, you'd be able to smell the smelling salts.
Yep.
Kind of get your head a little bit right. So you could have a little bit of a clue.
Yeah.
So but I wasn't exactly right. So the trainer's like, well, how many fingers I got up? I go 2. But
that was predetermined.
Yeah, but he didn't put his fingers up. He goes, you're lying. I go, no, I'm not lying. I go, I'm Nostradamus. I see the future. How could I be concussed if I knew you were going to put up 2? And then fortunately, I got to play and went into double overtime and got a chance to win the game. But it was a real defining moment from my football career and a life lesson that I really believe helped give me some of the self-confidence and self-esteem that later in my life, and at times when things didn't go good for me, I had that confidence and that belief that even in pain, I could get up and not quit, and kind of rally through it. I'm very proud of having that kind of mindset, but also more that kind of mindset is what gets you in trouble from the physical standpoint. And in your 20s, that's one thing to have all those, to be able to tough it out, and I'm proud to do it. But you pay the
bill
price later. And for myself, more me and you talked about it. And I'm not picking on docs and the treatments and stuff, but as a guy who was quite a few ho-hos north of 300 pounds a few years ago, that spent most of this century on 20-some different types of pills, whether 4 or 5 high blood pressure pills, 3 or 4 cholesterol pills, 3 or 4 anti-inflammation pills. Heck, that's starting your day out with a dozen type pills before you even get into pain medications and sleeping pills, and you're still in pain and you're not sleeping for this whole century. So really proud to, trying to figure out how to get yourself healthy and then be able to have that responsibility to help others.
Well, from where I'm sitting, a couple of observations, Bernie. You look great. You look as good as I've seen you in a long time. And there were times when you didn't look great and you didn't sound great and slurred speech, and people thought you were drunk, but you weren't. It had to do with the CTE and it had to do with a lot of other things. But what I also detect right away is this beautiful, strong Youngstown accent, dialect, and your toughness. When I read your story, Bernie, your toughness came from Youngstown, man, and from growing up there. That's a tough place to grow up. And you go to Miami, but you always wanted to come home to Cleveland. And it was interesting in my research that what all transpired, and we don't have to spend like a lot of time on it, but I thought it was interesting that you kind of trumped through and made it happen through the supplemental draft back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
You wanted to make sure, because the Vikings wanted you, Houston, heck, everybody wanted you. Let's face it, you came from a lineage at Miami. Let's see, Kelly, Testaverde, Kosar. A pretty nice lineup right there. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So that toughness from Youngstown, the desire to come back to Cleveland, share that story with me, and then let's talk a little bit about your great playing days, because you guys you came to Cleveland and to the Browns at a time when they were not successful, and you really brought them.
Yeah, thanks.
Really brought them some success.
Growing up in the 70s, and I'm very proud to be from Northeastern Ohio. I believe this is such a beautiful part of our world, of our country, and again, growing up here, I'm so blessed at the respect and the character that the people and the resilience that we have in this area. But in the 70s, it's a manufacturing steel worker town, especially Youngstown, Ohio. And when the steel mills basically all closed in the 70s, there was no jobs to be had. And I love our area. I love my family, but we're laborers. We're steel workers, generationally steel workers.
Okay.
And when the mills closed, there was nothing to do in town. Here you are as a 13, 14-year-old kid. You see the duress that your family's under. You kind of see the reality of the situation. I love my parents to death, but they tried to shield you from what was really happening there.
Yeah.
So as the oldest in the family, sibling, you almost take on that responsibility as the way you were raised up here. So kind of being a mommy's boy too, and where the situation wasn't good economy-wise or family-wise in the late 70s, early 80s, I absolutely wanted to stay home. I wanted to stay in and around Northeast Ohio, play up in the Midwest here, and see if I could become a top tier quarterback. But really, I didn't anticipate being a pro quarterback, even a college quarterback. It really was your only vehicle. Sports was your only vehicle to get out of there, to get a scholarship, to help get an education. So that kind of mindset of getting your education, well then going
was there an aha moment, Bernie, for you when you say, man, I got a chance to go next level? Was there, I know you had mentors, coaches that helped you along the way to, whether it was your technique of throwing the football, which I thought you had one of the, people say, oh, he's unorthodox and he's not mobile, but man, you could zing the ball, you had touch on it, you could throw the long ball, and you were cerebral. Like I said in my introduction, was there a guy that kind of clarified it for you at a young age?
Yeah, I had some massive good mentors besides Coach Schnellenberger on that staff. Besides Jim Kelly, the great Jim Kelly was there, and that's probably why I did not wear a mouthpiece, because why me and him are struggling with mouth issues right now because of the inability to wear the mouthpiece and that ability to just want to win. But at our first quarterback coach for Jim Kelly and Bernie Kosar was the great Earl Morrow.
Wow.
Was our quarterback coach. And then I was blessed to have Mark Tressman, who has gone on to be an amazing coach and offensive coordinator and head coach in the league. Those two are, from the college standpoint, were massively helpful. And then the great Gary Danielson. When I was transitioning from college to the pros, Gary's influence of how to make that transition and how to really look at NFL defenses, because even in college, I'm not really quite sure I really believed I was going to be an NFL guy. More, I really was accelerated my way through college because I didn't think I was going to be a pro quarterback. I mean, when I got to the U, it was Jim Kelly, Mark Richt, Vinny Testaverde, Kyle Vanderwin. I'm fifth. So I'm fifth. I'm actually going to transfer. It took me a lot of time to get the stones up to actually go talk to Coach Schnellenberger and say, hey, it doesn't look good for me. Doesn't look good for me to play here. I got Jim Kelly, I got Mark Richt, I got Vinny Testaverde in front of me. I go, it doesn't look good. I don't really want to be a career backup. And Coach goes, yeah, you're right. It doesn't look good for you. And that's not exactly, okay, yeah, that's not exactly what I want to hear.
No.
But he goes, it's so defining. And for young kids out there, he goes, anything in life that's great, everybody wants it. You want to be rich? Everybody wants to be rich. You want to be the CEO of a company? Yeah, everybody wants to. You want to be the quarterback for University of Miami? Yeah, a lot of people want to do that. So if you want to run from a challenge now, you want to go home to mommy, okay, you'll be okay. You'll go home to mommy. But he goes, I guarantee you, the whole rest of your life, you'll be a quitter. Whenever a challenge arises, whenever something difficult comes up, you're going to run from it. You're going to be afraid. So he goes, it's better to embrace it. Go for it with every ounce of your fiber. And then if you fail, even if you fail, you've done your best. He goes, so when you're an old man like me, you won't die from within. And that
is powerful words, bro.
Yeah. And as an older guy now, the seeds of discontent, of I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have tried this. And you can't do anything about it now. Well, I'm really proud. So thankful. God bless the great Howard Schnellenberger, who has just passed. And we did a celebration of life a couple weeks ago. Down at the U. It was so powerful message of failing isn't the act of not maybe winning the job. Failing is more about not trying. And if you try, you do your best, you can look yourself in the mirror. You don't have to be the best looking guy, but you tried your best. You don't have to be embarrassed. And that type of advice, that type of wisdom.
Beautiful.
I can't thank him enough for it. And I almost more feel like it's almost a responsibility now of people like us that, do things like this today.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, I'm not proud sometimes to talk about some of the injuries, all the pills you had to take, the journey to get here, but I'm here, and I'm proud of some of the things.
We're proud of you. You
And
need to know that.
thank you. And if we have an ability now in our vulnerability, and in our wisdom and in our experiences to share it with other people, so that they don't have to go through some of those dark, tough times themselves. And I really believe it's our responsibility, my responsibility, to start sharing those messages with people, so that they don't have to go through maybe some of those dark times themselves.
You know, you've come so far, Bernie, and the worst thing as a human being is the sting of regret in my mind. That sting of coulda, woulda, shoulda, and I'm referring back to Schnellenberger, but it's also very relatable to your life when you look in the rearview mirror, and I'm not asking you to do that long, because it absolutely appears to me that you're living in the present. But when you look in the rearview mirror, and the sting of regret is certainly there. You had personal tragedy, you got divorced, you had bankruptcy, you had addiction, you had alcohol, you had a lot of things there on your plate, where a normal human being, if it's me, I don't know if I'm handling this, and I don't know if I might check out. That's when I'm looking from the outside in. Help me understand, help our listeners understand how you were able to navigate through the tough times of these 4 or 5 elements that are really big things in your life.
Well, that's beautiful how you kind of articulated that and asked that, because to me, it's almost like a responsibility of it. You go through a stage where you absolutely are feeling sorry for yourself. Why me? Oh, it shouldn't be me. That type stuff. Oh, it's somebody else. Oh, it's Morten's problem. It's Morten's issue. It's that person's mistake. It's not mine. And when you really start self-analyzing yourself, and actually as athletes, a lot of the perception is that we're spoiled, but when you're in the locker room and you're in the film meeting room, you are dissected as hard by your peers, your coaches, and in turn yourself. You didn't play 25 years, okay, without being your own harshest, worst critic.
True.
Like myself too. And when you're going through those type things, you almost like the Coach Schnellenberger analogy earlier of go home and quit, go somewhere else.
Brilliant.
The issue, pretend it's not there. And again, I went through that. I pretended it wasn't there for a while, but then at football and life, almost football actually forces you, I think, to deal with your issues. And
how so?
Well, because the reality of the coaches, the players, the microscope you're under, the ability to stay within the team, within the locker room, you're always being judged. You're always kind of being critical of yourself, and you have to actually accept it. It's really kind of funny in society now where people say, "Oh, you said something I didn't like." Well, God, every day you went into the coach's locker room, they said something you didn't like, and that's when you played good. The better you played, sometimes the harsher it was. They were on you.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so I can only say that I'm just proud of you for blazing through that. And I want to talk a little bit about your
and more before you go to that too. It's
sure.
And we had said earlier, it's almost like kind of a responsibility side of it, and how do you kind of get through some of those situations when you admit that you have these issues, and that you try to search out and find healthy alternatives that make a difference in it. It really is game changing and life changing, and that positive feeling that you're able to have really within yourself when it's worked and it's right. Again, it's almost a responsibility and something I'm looking forward to sharing with other people, so that they could kind of feel that same sense of relief and happiness. I felt like we had these issues before the virus happened 18 months to 2 years ago with what we're calling it CTE, but it's a physical ailments of our bodies. It's also there's the mental components, the mental depressions, the lack of sleeps, the abuse, aggressiveness was an issue in society, suicide rates within a lot of us ex-players, and we're finding a lot of the CTE issues within us ex-football players. I'm sadly finding that in quite a few younger, the combat vets that are coming back from Afghanistan and overseas. And these young kids are coming back with, unfortunately, the same issues that an old man like me has. So it's almost now like, you asked how I was getting through it, or how it was almost part of it was almost telling myself I needed to, almost like when I was laying on the ground on Cleveland Stadium when Gastineau knocked me out, you want to just kind of lay there and curl up in the fetal position. And you got to make a decision right then. And it's, do I do that, or do I get up and I give it all that intestinal fortitude I have to make a difference, and figure out what's right and how to do it right. And not only just and then share it with others, because it's not something you want to really harbor within yourself, because so many other people are really hurting out there.
It's the testimonial, really. It's a testimony born out of personal experience, personal tribulation, but it's also an endorsement for strong will and stubbornness. And I go back to Youngstown again, but I go back to Cleveland for that matter. I mean, people in Cleveland and the Midwest, really, Pittsburgh, you can name any of these gritty cities, Buffalo, they're all like that, right? You have that element of toughness and
that toughness, that grittiness. Yeah. And again, with a mix of compassion. And that's actually like, when we were talking earlier in the 70s and 80s of the lack of manufacturing jobs and the lack of real work and an economy up here. Then I get a chance to go to Miami, where that was not the Miami that we know today. It was right after the Mario boat lift and Fidel Castro had opened up his jails. There was rioting in the streets down in Coconut Grove back then. It was a whole tough environment, but Miami was starting to really grow and blossom in the mid-'80s, yet Cleveland and Northeast Ohio hadn't. And that kind of spiritual journey to kind of feel that responsibility to come back here. And you were so gracious, Morten, to kind of talk earlier about Minnesota and Houston, and actually the Raiders had been trying to get me to play for them. And financially, we had talked earlier about my bankruptcy. Financially, I've never been absolutely motivated, actually at all, by money. So the money part of going to, I could have gone to some other cities and some other places, or played the negotiation game up against the other teams to really maximize the dollar amount. But the way I kind of felt I am as a person, and the way I was thinking now, but absolutely I know I was thinking it then, was that Youngstown, Ohio, that Northeastern Ohio mentality that this is our home, this is our family, and it's beautiful, man. Looking over at the stadium behind here, I got a little picture of me on the other one. It's beautiful what's happened to our city over the last 40 years, but it wasn't like this in the 70s and 80s.
No.
And it needed our team to be back. It needed people who cared, who wanted to be here. And I'm super proud that I was one of those people that I care about it, and I wanted to come back here. And they used the phrase, I'm not sure I kind of like the phrase, but manipulated the draft so that I could get into the supplemental draft, so that I could bluntly come home. I finally came home to mommy and got home to play here.
Man, I'm looking at this, the first 5 seasons in Cleveland, Browns won a ton of games. Team went 49-29-1, and you made 2 trips to the AFC Championship game.
3, but who's counting?
Okay, 3. Okay, my bad. Bad research. Shame on you, Tom. No, we're good. I looked at something. And so you had Kevin Mack, Ernest Biner. They were both 2,000-yard backs, basically.
Yeah, that's a great point, Morten, for even today's game.
Because I'm looking at Chubb and Hunt now.
Yeah, beautiful transition.
So let's talk about that. Do
Yeah,
you feel like how fortunate to have two runners like that?
How fortunate. And then for the football aficionados out there who are massive into the X's and O's, which I still am, check out how 5 years ago you were the Antichrist on an NFL roster if you had multiple tight ends and a fullback. Okay, you did not run the ball. You did not have two backs in the game. I'm well versed in you've heard me talk on this podcast so much now about Coach Shula, Howard Schnellenberger, Marty Schottenheimer. Those three coaches, they had amazing skills at understanding the overall game. Yeah. But their abilities to understand line play and running the ball back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
It's exactly what the Cleveland Browns are doing right now in the year 2021. People are saying the game's changed. The actual X's and O's and the ability to run the ball and stop the run is still predominant as to winning or losing in the game. So having the awesome Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner, two the first 1,000-yard rushers in 1985, and now to see a reincarnation of them with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, it's a massively, eerily similar as we gaze out to Lake Erie right now. And that, again, I know I sound like a homer, and I'm not saying this just to pub the Browns and just say it's politically right, because just like my journey of this century, since the 21st century has started, the Cleveland Browns have massively struggled this century. So this isn't just idle hope, but boy, when you could run the ball and stop the run, and you have an offensive line and a running game like we have, and you got Myles Garrett, and we keep JV and Clowney healthy, nobody's going to want to play the Cleveland Browns in December. And
how close? How close is the Cleveland Browns to winning a Super Bowl? How close are you?
I don't want to put the taboo on us because we haven't made it there yet. Okay. But look, this team, again, this isn't just trying to be because I'm sitting here in Cleveland. When you could run the ball and you could be as physically dominant as our team can be. And our game against the NFL game has always been physical.
Yeah.
But now with the way the rules have changed to where probably half the teams in the league are spread teams that are throwing it, this physical presence puts us right up there where I guarantee you that nobody wants to play us in January. So I absolutely see us as a playoff solid team.
What's your relationship with Baker Mayfield? You give him some advice. I mean, it's because you're not similar quarterbacks, but you have similar weapons. To our earlier point here, the great running game gives you the play action, right? What is your advice to Baker, and what do you think Stefanski has done differently than previous coaches, or is it strictly personnel?
I do not think it's strictly personnel. We have excellent personnel. So that's Andrew Berry, Paul DiBattista, Coach Kevin Stefanski have absolutely loaded up from the personnel standpoint. So this is an NFL roster. I'm a big believer, Morten. I say the phrase, we are victims or beneficiaries of the people around us. And us quarterbacks, we get way too much credit when we win, and we get too much blame when we lose. But the systems are really imperative to success of some QBs. And I've seen way more young quarterbacks end up in horrible systems that aren't meant for them, that actually they end up termed a bust, and maybe their system isn't right for them. I actually love Coach Stefanski's system and this physical running game for Baker right now. I think that this absolutely, from a quarterback perspective, you're able to, and I always tried to be a 50-50 run-pass guy. In the NFL now, that sounds cool, but I think we run the ball as much as anybody in the league, and we're 50-50, and that seems excessive. But man, when we're able to run the ball like that with that play action, again, we didn't even play to our best this past Sunday in LA at SoFi Stadium, and we scored 42 points, 523 yards. So this is still just week 5. I see Bake and our offense scarily getting better, and we're already playing damn good football.
Who would you grab from this roster year 2021 if you had a chance and could go back in time when you played in the 80s? What player from this roster would you grab? Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb? Who would it be?
I'm not trying to pick on anybody from my past, because I've loved all my players. And, if this is an overall concept of what's best for the team, Of course you like the Myles Garretts, those pass rushers. But boy, do I love my tight ends and David Njoku and what he's doing right now, what you saw him do this past Sunday. He's a physical mismatch against any of these the kind of linebacker safeties they put on him. In the old days, we weren't as aggressive with the personnel groups and the formations like they do today. So today, you're seeing 2, 3, 4 tight ends on the field, and you see all these guys are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 255, 265, running 4.5s, 4.45s, 4.55s, and you got a David Njoku, and I'm decently tall at almost 6'6", and he makes me look like a midget next to him. So I see him running at that 260-pound frame. I don't see how you could cover him spread out like that. And I love the fade. Love the fade versus press coverage.
Nobody stays in one place anymore. We know that with free agency. And you left when you left Cleveland. You were fired, released, whatever you want to say. I've been there myself. You think you're going to end up in one place, but you do go to Dallas, man, and you have a great set. You come in and Aikman gets hurt. Come in the NFC Championship game, and you actually help the Dallas Cowboys go to the Super Bowl, and you do have a ring. You do have a Super Bowl ring with the Dallas Cowboys. Talk to me about, is that what we got right down the left hand there?
Yeah.
I love it. I don't have one, man, but talk to me about Dallas and that transition. Then you end up also at the end in Miami, but I really thought that Dallas transition was nice.
For not to want to sound like a preacher, but for the younger kids out there, growing up in Northeast Ohio, Morten, to your point, so true. You think you're going to be in one place your whole life. You come back, you're going to start your career here. You were born here. You're going to start your career here. You're going to finish your career here. You're going to die here. Yeah. I'm going to work on that latter part, and I'm going to push that out as far as possible.
That's right.
But when you're released, you don't. We were in first place in 1993, and Bill Belichick was my coach, and we had some issues back then. Now, and just for the listeners now, I love them. I can't believe.
What were the issues you had?
Well, we had X's and O issues. I was taught back then from, again, we've talked at length of Howard Schnellenberger, Don Shula, Marty Schottenheimer.
Sure.
The old school QBs in the 60s, 70s called their own plays. That was changing by the 80s. Yet I was still calling my own plays then. And for, again, the listeners out there, I was not very strong and I was not very fast. So I needed to be really smart and accurate in my plays and stuff. But, and he had and he didn't have the offensive philosophy that he has today.
He meaning Belichick.
Yeah, Coach Belichick. But you could see he had the intelligence and gifts and massive skills that he was going to get it. And it's awesome to see that, how it's materialized today from there. But at that point, you're released. You think your world's over. And again, almost to whether it's laying on the ground when Gastineau knocked me out, or when I get the courage to ask Coach Schnellenberger, am I ever going to have a chance to play here? What's that decision going to
look
be
like?
Yeah. And there's
But you land on your feet. You go to Dallas and you win a
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
and when that happened, you think your life's over, and you think that you're not sure how to handle yourself, and that's again was a great life lesson that it really was another opportunity. If I stay in Cleveland, right after that, that's when they announced that the Browns are leaving.
Yes.
So I don't have to make that decision.
No,
Do
it was a
I leave
blessing.
my town and go to Baltimore? I probably wouldn't. The Browns have yet to be in a Super Bowl. I wouldn't have got a Super Bowl ring as a player. So you get that opportunity to go down there, and then I'd rather talk about more. Thank you so much for bringing up the NFC Championship game in 1993 that I was so blessed to be able to win, to get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
But I had lost 3 AFC Championship games before that, and I'm super proud to have just gotten, as I've gotten older, just to have gotten to those games.
Yeah.
But man, when you haven't won one of those games, so I wouldn't have had that opportunity, that honor to kind of get that monkey off my back.
Oh yeah, it got off your back.
Championship game, because people say, God, he had to be so excited. He had to be so excited. And I know you probably concur with this, that we act excited, but it's actually more a sense of relief. It's almost the monkey off your back, a sense of relief that you did that. And that was really an awesome experience for me to I don't want to go through it again.
Yeah.
I don't recommend going through it, but almost like you were asking me earlier about the bankruptcies, the health issues, the addiction issues, how do you figure out the holistic issues? It's almost like that happened to me for a reason, to prepare me for what I'm at now. I kind of thought maybe years ago that maybe my own responsibility or my own mission or purpose was just to be a football player and then to cruise out talking about what happened in the past. But I think a lot of these life lessons, these experiences, put us all, we go through these for a reason, as we get older, to be able to really help others and to learn from them.
Maybe time provides levity when you're too close to it and in the middle of it. You can't make sense of it. You're just trying to get through it by any means necessary. To your earlier point about the challenges that you faced, and you did the best you could at the time. But now, as you sit there in Cleveland with this gorgeous view of Lake Erie and have levity and perspective, it sounds to me like a man who has developed this sounds weird, a sense of appreciation for the tough road that you traveled, Yeah,
that's really astute, Morten. Thanks, man. That's why you're so awesome. In a demented way, I'm actually kind of glad they happened. Because
I know this sounds.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not trying to be a martyr or a masochist or whatever, narcissist, whatever the right phrase is. But I'm actually kind of glad it happened, because I wouldn't have been able to learn and grow and understand what happened to me. And then I'm not trying to say I know everything, but I could really sense and see what's happening to others, and that pain that so many of us are really hiding and residing within ourselves. I don't think I would have been able to understand, impact, and help that unless I really would have embraced and, in a demented way, enjoyed that painful experience to pull and learn from.
But I also think, and I want to continue what you just said and add this to it. From where I'm sitting, I also see a man now who has been able to verbalize it. Not to internalize it, but to verbalize it and teach others through it, about it, in spite of it. And I think that's the more valuable commodity here, is the fact that you are, what's the word I'm looking for? You're paying it forward,
I like to say, pass it forward.
Thank you. You're passing it forward, and you talk about a lot of stuff in your book, Learning to Scramble, which I've browsed through, and where you honestly and transparently and authentically look at your life, and it can be cathartic to write a book, but it can also be a cathartic to talk about it and pass it forward, as you're doing. So I think that's the valuable takeaway for me with you, Bernie, is not that you internalized it, but that you faced it head on, and you are now transitioning into being like a teacher and mentor to others. I think that's really the beauty of it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you seeing it, because for right or wrong, that I really believe that's a mission or a pathway that's been put in front of me, and
yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited to.
I can tell. I can tell you are.
To have that gift, or really to have been shown this pathway.
Yeah, I can tell, man. And when I see you in Canton, you have a big smile on your face, and you're engaging with people, and you're just being authentically you, which I love so much about you. Let me finish with a couple of names for you, and you can, whatever comes to mind when I say the name, it can be a word, it can be a phrase. You've already touched on your coaches, Schottenheimer, Schnellenberger, Shula. You've touched on them, so I don't think we need to spend any more time. But here's some of the names that has touched your life, that you have entered into their lives, and you've been with or against. Clay Matthews,
Hall of Fame bound.
Yes, he should. He was my teammate in Atlanta. Loved him. My favorite teammate.
Yeah,
should be in the Hall.
Yeah, and actually, when you guys were teammates, it was amazing that you were probably. Let me see. He was probably in a year about like 19, and you were only you were a youngster in like year 13
I was like,
or
15. Yeah, 15. 13. Yeah, 13. 95. We were together. 95, 96. Yep. And so Hall of Fame bound should be for sure.
Yeah, and he absolutely should. He was my locker neighbor, so I had him and Chip Banks, two of the most athletic guys.
Oh.
And for Clay Matthews to play outside linebacker
19 years.
19 years in the NFL and play good. Like, he had a sack in his last game in Atlanta. It wasn't like he was hanging on to play at an elite level where, again, not to say like back when we played, but back when we played, that poor guy got killed in practice every day, the Wednesday, Thursday inside drills to have his body be a
short yardage, goal line, you name it, man. It was brutal, right? Ozzie Newsome.
We started earlier. Love my tight ends. It absolutely starts with the greatest ever, and keeping loved. I was so honored to be having a play with him in the huddle, keeping that streak of his going, which is actually easy. But, I was one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league. And I remember getting in the huddle in 1985, and here I am still feeling like a kid, and I look like a kid. And then they got men like Ozzie Newsome, Clay Matthews in the locker room, but I got to go in the locker room in the huddle with Ozzie Newsome. That's really intimidating. And I've had coaches like Eric Mangini, Bill Belichick. They used to use this phrase: "Don't be it. You don't want to be it. You don't want to be the reason why you stink." Okay, so now here with Ozzie Newsome, a Hall of Famer, all perennial All-Pro. I got all this hype coming in. I'm in the locker room. I did not want to stink, and I would use other language for that. But he was so awesome with that, and as a player, and I knew him as that. But for him to be the first African-American general manager in our league, and what he did with the Baltimore Ravens, from an administrative side, from a leadership side, it's just phenomenal. So for a man to be a Hall of Famer football player, he's a Hall of Fame person, and now a Hall of Famer really from the administrative general manager leadership side. I can keep going.
Jimmy Johnson,
love him. I think I'm the only guy who at the University of Miami with him, then Super Bowl with the Cowboys, and then we finished together with the Dolphins in '96. And what I loved about Jimmy was he was put in a tough spot early in his Canes career, because he got the job like 6 weeks before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am. I'm a 19-year-old. I'm a 19-year-old quarterback, and here he is as the head coach of a top tier program that won the national championship. He's coming in from Oklahoma State, and for him, I didn't really realize it and appreciate it as much as I probably should have at the time. But for him to basically let me run the offense and to have that opportunity to have really carte blanche as a 19-year-old, and then to play there. And then here I am, I get released from Cleveland, and I really kind of thought I was going to go down to the Dolphins because Dan Marino had tore his Achilles, and it looked like I was going to go there to play. And I get cut on a Monday. The Dallas Cowboys are playing the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. On Tuesday night, I'm about ready to go to Florida to play for Coach Shula. And Jimmy Johnson calls and goes, he goes, "Hey, you want to start this week?" I go, "What?" I go, "Yeah, Troy has a torn hamstring. You could play quarterback for the Cowboys against the Arizona Cardinals." I go, "Well, Coach, I don't even know. Are you using my old plays?" He goes, "All you got to do is hand the ball off to Emmett." I'm like, "Okay, I think I'll do that." And all of a sudden, I'm on a plane to Dallas. So only Jimmy Johnson can say, "Hey," he hadn't seen me play in a couple of years, and then talked to me. He goes, "Hey, come on now, start for my team." And he has the stones to actually put me in the game and let me do it. So God bless him.
Well, you had the stones to deliver, my friend.
Well, thanks.
Deliver when Aikman went down in the NFC Championship game. Hey, drop the mic right there and show me the ring. Hello, boom. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of Troy Aikman, what was your relationship with Troy? When I say Troy Aikman, you say what?
I love him. Oh God, his competitiveness, his ability, his timing. Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky spot when you come into a guy's team. Yes. That's his team, and he was phenomenal to me. But in the middle of a season, and you're the quarterback, and you're hurt, not playing. Unfortunately, I was in that spot too. You're not in a good mood about anything, and for him to kind of separate that personal pain that he's going through, because nobody you didn't want to see anybody kicking on your team.
No.
Nobody wants to see anybody in their huddle, even if you're the best of friends. So I can't thank him enough for allowing me the opportunity to sit in his, have his huddle for a little bit, and take care of it. And I looked at that like an honor that I was the kind of the gatekeeper, holding his huddle together while he was getting healthy.
Yeah, he had grace. He showed grace.
Which is one real grace, and he knew I was hurting, even though he was, and then he was too physically. He knew more I was mentally, and to kind of have that compassion. Look, it's easy to be our friends when you got these and you're at the Super Bowl. When you just got whacked and you don't have a job, okay, that's when you know who your friends are. And at those points, some of the names we just were talking about, Jimmy Johnson, Troy Aikman, Jason Garrett. God, I love those guys. Jerry Jones. I can't thank them enough for, at low points in my life, them being there for me and believing in me.
Yeah, well, this is a good place to stop, Bernie, because we've 60 minutes gone like that when you're having fun. You're having fun. And you've sprayed so much wisdom at me and so much clarity, and it's cathartic for me. I hope it is for you too. I know you tell your story a lot, but it bears mentioning that I feel very strongly about this. And I'm just very proud of you for navigating your journey that way. Really, spot on, brother. Yeah.
Thank you, my man. I love you. We're gonna keep in touch on it. Okay.
You got it, man.
All right, my man.
All right, brother. See you later.